Would you guess, hi Carolina, would you guess how to pronounce this?
That word, I would say Yashin.
Yeah, why yeah, there's an I.
Oh, well, Yishin. Yishin. Yeah, my mistake. Yishin?
Almost.
Yishin?
Well, there is a y, you're
Uh-huh.
right there,
Yishin.
there's,
Okay. But I
but
don't know.
it's
I
not,
have no idea how to pronounce that C with the mark on it. I have no clue.
well, you said sh, yeah?
Uh-huh.
Like Sean.
Yeah. Is it
Well, that would be
Yishin?
S. That would be S with a hook, but this is the C
Okay.
with a hook. Do you have any idea how to pronounce that?
Yikin? Yikin? Uh,
Yichin, yes?
Yichin. Yeah. And I
Can
pronounced it with
you,
the I on the end instead of the E. Yikin. Yisin?
can you see the accent above
Yeah.
the second I? It means it's long.
Ah. Okay. Okay.
All right, so it's E. So the first one is short, yi,
Uh-huh.
and the long one, the second one is long, chin, yi chin.
Yichin. Yichin. Okay.
What do you think, ladies? And Carolina, especially, who comes from Michin, did he pronounce it correctly?
I'm getting my
Hi,
own
Nick.
pronunciation lesson now. This is good. I also have to say ahoche Slovaci as well. So I learned how to say that. So I need to say that to my friends in Slovakia. So ahoche Slovaci. So I hope people are proud of me. I hope I did that right. That's one that I learned.
She says cool. So,
Okay, good. All right.
and yes, and Zuzka, who's in Colchester, she said, because she's also Czech, she said she's impressed.
Well, with good guidance, I did an okay job, but it was thanks to you. So thank you for your patience, Nina.
And you are a good student, and you must be a pronunciation teacher, Nick.
In fact, I am.
In fact, you are. And you are, in fact, a very popular teacher on social media. How did that
Yeah.
happen?
Let's see. I've always liked social media. I've always been active on social media since I first started in, like, I think 2005. I got a MySpace account, or no, Friendster, then MySpace, and
Friendster,
then
you were on Friendster.
yeah, then I got Facebook in 2007. And when we started my schools, I knew that social media could be a pretty powerful tool,
Same.
and that essentially it's free. I mean, obviously you have to pay for some things, but knowing that it was free, I thought, well, then I'm going to do a lot of it. If it's free, I'm going to do it all the time. So when we started the Connect English Facebook pages and Instagram and stuff, we just post a lot. Why not? And then in 2000, and I had taught the pronunciation class many times, even before Connect English. I taught versions of my, I guess, now famous pronunciation class at other schools I taught at in in 2005, 6, 7 is when I kind of devised how to do these classes. And then when in 2015 we started our Pacific Beach campus of Connect English, and I really wanted to add some extra pizzazz, some extra excitement to that campus. So I started teaching the class there, but not on social media. But then in 2016, that was when, I believe it was 2016, was when Facebook really started trying to encourage live videos. If y'all remember, it really was about 4 years ago that all of a sudden we started seeing lots of live videos on Facebook. And I put two and two together, and I thought, I bet I could show my pronunciation class on Facebook Live. And sure enough, it was, when I first did it, it was the most popular post in the history of Connect English. The first class was.
I remember it.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, wow, this is something that we have to run with. And so originally I had my phone was taped onto a water bottle so that it could stand up. That was my my audio visual equipment was my phone with the selfie camera taped to a water bottle. So you'll notice maybe in the first videos, the angle of the camera is really strange. It's kind of looking up at me because it's taped on. And I thought after about 5 or 6 videos, or maybe a dozen videos, I said, it's time to invest. So I got, a tripod and stuff, and it helps a lot. But they were extremely popular, and people were sharing them like crazy. And the Facebook algorithm really promoted the live videos in the early days, and they still do. But it was extremely popular there, and in those days.
business is called Connect English.
Exactly, and that's the reason
Why
why
did
we
you
wanted to
call it?
form Connect.
Why did you call it
Well,
Connect English?
the first reason, of course, is we thought about a lot of different names, and the first thing I wanted a name that inspired action. I find that a lot of schools just choose letters, and they're like DRO English or ABW English, and for a lot of people, those letters don't mean anything. It has no meaning, and so sometimes when my employees try to call the school CE, I'm like, what's CE? And they're like, CE, the school. I'm like, it's not CE, it's Connect English. So it's really important to kind of inspire energy and action and to, but it's also a pretty universal word. Connect, if we went through on Google Translate and looked at how many languages the word connect almost completely is a cognate for or with in other languages. And it's in so many languages. And then even in other languages, even Japanese and Korean and Mandarin, they still know the word because a lot of their devices, the first thing it tells them when they get a new device is connect your device. And they've seen this word so many times that even though it's not a cognate to Mandarin or to Thai, they've seen the word enough to know what it means. And it usually means a good thing. And so connecting with humans or connecting your devices is usually a point when you're reaching success. You're on the verge of success when you've connected. And so we chose a word that it's inspired action, that was a cognate, and that also meant something positive in people's lives already.
You live in San Diego. What are the trails like? The treks?
Yeah, basically, is San Diego, we often joke, we call it not a joke, we call it a very Mediterranean climate. So it is, the temperature in the summer is often about 28 Celsius. But right now it's a little foggy. Usually at the end of June, there's fog through the mornings. But, and so because of that, the temperature being nice, we say it's where the desert meets the ocean. And so if you drive 30 minutes east, the temperature is extremely hot right now. It's going to be 35, 40 degrees Celsius if you just drive 30 minutes east. And of course, right here, I live on the coast, and it's a little cooler here.
We have known each other for, I would say, almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was really, I can't even remember where we met, somewhere on Facebook, somewhere on social media. And do you remember the story?
I remember it was something about that we were talking about textbooks, I think. And then because the first thing I remember about you was that you have the unique perspective on textbooks, which is, stop relying on them so much. And so I've also, I know that at my schools we use them, but I love getting away from them. I love creating activities and escaping from textbooks and finding ways to activate language without textbooks. And
why do you think it's better?
Well, I think it opens up more. It opens up more creativity, I think, with students, and you can customize your lessons to fit your students a little bit better. When you have a textbook, a lot of times, 2 out of 5 topics are truly interesting to the students, and the other 3 are just exercises. And when you customize your activities, you can make sure they fit your demographic a little bit better. I like to create activities that fit my known student demographics. I'm not going to talk about insurance with a bunch of students who are skateboarders and are playing rock bands. They don't care about talking about insurance. But if it were a business English class, or more like, students who are executives or, business students, I could customize my lessons to fit that more. So I like the customization of getting away from textbooks. It takes a lot of creativity. And I'll tell you this, my level of creativity from when I used to teach every day, day in and day out, my level of creativity has dropped a lot because my mind isn't thinking about creating lessons as much. And so, but
more on the executive side now, right? Can you maybe
sadly, yes,
a little bit more about your school now and where you are now, and then we can go to the past, how you got there. So when we first met, I remember that you weren't this big, and over the past 10 years, you've grown. And I also know that you've been, this is how I see you, you've been also fighting for high quality language education in the US for the international students, which is so, and the minorities in the US who need to learn English, obviously. So this is something that I consider highly valuable when thinking of your work. Please tell us more about your work.
Okay, well, I would say that in the USA there are really three main categories of language schools, and we created Connect English to be a combination of a few of them, or two of them. The first one would be the university-based English schools, and they can be a little boring sometimes. The teachers all have PhDs, and it's a little too formal, and students, it's very academic, and that's valuable for some students. And then there are the private language schools that are really expensive, and I worked for one of them for quite some time, and I didn't love it. Let's say I didn't love working there. And then I also worked for a low-price language school, but the quality was not at all their concern. They did not. The owner of that school had no motivation for quality. The owner of that school just wanted, low price, get the students in, fill up the classes, issue documents, and I didn't like that. And so we created Connect English because we realized that of all these students who needed an affordable school, there was no school that cared about really delivering and really being a meaningful education experience. And, a lot of students thought, well, you have to pay so much money to get that. And yeah, but even at the expensive school where I had worked before, I still didn't feel like they consistently delivered a good education. They had some excellent teachers and some okay teachers there at that other school. And I still didn't feel like paying all that money was really a guarantee of quality. I said, there's got to be a better way to deliver something that students can afford, but that also is still they can expect to learn from. They can expect real progress. They can expect real service and real concern for education. And so we started Connect English, and that was in 2009. You could say we officially opened our first location. And we made a point always of very, very heavily vetting our teachers. So any teacher that came in and applied, we put them in. The phrase we use in English is we put them through the ringer. And the ringer, it was an old machine that you would use before you had when you had wet clothing. After you had washed your clothing, you would put it in the ringer, and the ringer would squeeze the water out of the clothes. And if you put a person through the ringer, it means you squeeze everything out of them. And so we put our prospective teachers through the ringer. And we're very proud to hear our teachers oftentimes talking with our students saying the interview process and the hiring process with Connect English was the hardest one I've ever done in my life. So we give a surprise grammar tests on the phone. When we first call our teachers, we give a 5-question grammar test on the phone. And it's 5 relatively simple questions. And I bet you that all of your teachers know the answers to all of these. But it's surprising.
Can you tell us?
I can tell you a couple of the questions. I can't broadcast the secret. Okay. I mean, the questions are so simple. There's something like, what's the difference between present simple and present progressive? And why would you use one or the other? What's the difference between a gerund and an infinitive? And what is a phrasal verb? And then we would say, what is an idiom? And then another one, I think the final one is, I'm going to give 2 sentences. One is in the passive voice. Please tell me which sentence is in passive voice.
Oh, this is easy peasy for all of us.
Exactly. But you would be surprised how many native speakers who've been teaching for 3 years, 4 years, we say, what's the difference between a gerund and an infinitive? And they say, gerund is a gerund and an infinitive is infinite. And like, what? No, a gerund is the ing noun form of a verb. And the infinitive is the to form that we use after other verbs frequently. And they're like, and it's amazing how probably 80% of people who apply to work for us, we disregard them after that first phone call.
I believe we could all work for Connect English, right?
Yeah, and you know your grammar well enough.
Yeah, we
and
do.
So
we're not speakers. We have to.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's amazing how many native speaker teachers, and I don't want to talk down to anybody too much, but how many native speaker teachers just want to, we say in English, skate by on their own native experience and their depth of vocabulary, for example. But that's not enough to be a great teacher. You have to know some
Where most
structure.
of them are in
What's
Prague.
that? Oh yeah.
So we know these people.
Yep, I was in when I taught in Rio de Janeiro. I was pretty disappointed at some of my coworkers. I had native speaker coworkers. I was like, "You don't know what you're doing. Like, this is not a good education. If you're the teacher and you don't even know what present perfect even means, when a student asks, "What's the present perfect conjugation of this?" and the teacher goes, "I think it's pretty perfect right now. That looks pretty perfect presently." And I was just like, oh no. And so that taught me how important it is to vet your teachers and make sure that your teachers, that you can believe in them, that they're not going to mislead their students in the classroom. Because
those of you working with me, if you're watching, because I have my team here, you can confirm, I think. Anyways, so now, what's your situation now? You have 3 schools.
3 campuses in San Diego, and we also have our office in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Brazil has always been a big market for us, and so when we had one of our all-time favorite employees, she started as a student, then became an intern, and then she went to UC San Diego, got a certificate at UC San Diego, the university here. Then she came back and worked for us with a work permit for the time she had. And when that expired, she said, I don't want to stop. I love working here. I love what you guys are doing. Can I start an office for you in Brazil? And we are extremely thankful that she did that, because Brazil is a really big market for international education. It's one of the top, 3, 4, 5 markets of students who go to the UK, who go to Australia, who go to the USA and Canada to study English. So we're very happy that Fabiana did that. So she created our Brazil office. So we have the 3 campuses and then the Brazil office.
Okay. And your clients are international students, and they're usually university students, or are they older? Because I saw on your website you also offer courses for professionals.
Yeah, our age range is pretty broad. I would say most of our students are in their mid to late 20s, or they just finished university, and then a lot of them started a career, and then like a lot of us did in our first career out of college, it wasn't exactly what we wanted, and then we said, I'm going to go experience something more engaging, more constructive, and so they come to the USA to study English for 3 months, 6 months, sometimes even a year. And then a lot of those students, we try to get them into college, to the USA, to the community colleges or to the universities. And then a lot of students, though, are folks who are older, who have 6 weeks of vacation from their country, and they decide to come to the USA for 4 weeks.
To California, it's a nice
California.
Day, yeah.
It is, yeah. And so there's really 2 or so types of students, you could say. They are the short-term visitor students, and then the long-term students who are here 6 or 8 months or longer, who really want to go to an expert level of English and then move on to university and get a degree in the USA. And we love helping those students, because we're so proud to send those students off to college after we help them pass the TOEFL, for example. So that's one of our proudest moments, is when we help students get admission to a university in the USA.
Yeah, I can imagine, because teachers, it feels like, we live through the success of our students, no matter what type of success, whether it's a job interview or acceptance to college, or I totally am with you on that. Where are most of your students from? Brazil,
Brazil is a big market. Saudi Arabia is also a big market. The Saudi government did a really good thing a few years ago, where about almost 10 years ago, they created a scholarship fund. And even though the scholarship fund that was sending students around the world, even though that scholarship fund has kind of wound down, it's not as popular anymore, it had created a culture of international education within the Saudi population. So now, even though the scholarship fund is over, so many Saudis say, I want to go study around the world. And we're like, congratulations, Saudi Arabia, for creating this desire to travel and study and experience cultures and meet people. It's been really cool. So I would say
that country is becoming much more open, thank God. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a great thing for them for people to get out and just see the world. We all know that traveling the world changes your life, and it has definitely done great things for the Saudi population and to be able to just go out and see everything. And we're really happy to have been a part of
Do
this
you get
cultural
ladies? You
change.
get ladies as well, yeah? Not just
Yeah,
men.
it's mostly Saudi men, but a lot of Saudi women as well. It used to be more during the scholarship era, was more Saudi women, but still plenty of Saudi women come here, especially in our partnership with UC San Diego. Their pharmacy students, their pharmacy
Okay.
scholars are a great mix of men and women who are going to become pharmacists in their home country or in the USA. And we're very
So
happy to work with them.
Brazilians, Saudis.
Then I would say after that, it's going to be Japanese probably is another big audience. And now Colombia has been growing a lot. We've had a lot more Colombian students. Korean students, we have a lot of Korean students, especially at our La Jolla campus. And then a lot of Chinese students as well at our La Jolla campus. And then after that, Turkey has been a pretty big audience as well. A lot of Turkish, yeah, they have a really good attitude toward international education. So a lot of Turks have come to us. And then after that, we have a mix of Spanish, Italian, some Mexican students. In fact, a lot fewer Mexican students than most would imagine. When most look at where San Diego is, they assume our schools are full of Mexican students, but really it's only about 3%. Only about 3% of our students are from Mexico. It's surprising that it's not as many students from right across the border. So, but they are an important part of our population. So we have a really cool mix of different languages, which means that in all of our classrooms, if you're a Thai student sitting next to a Saudi student, sitting next to a Brazilian student, the only language you can use is English. It's English only. And so it makes it easy to facilitate these conversations in English.
Yes, yeah, and there's no other language. It's a lingua franca these days.
There's no shortcuts also, so they can't look at me and say, agora. A lot of times the Brazilian students will look at me and try to speak Portuguese. They're like, sorry, I don't speak Portuguese when I'm on campus. I forget everything. And they're like, no, Nicky, por favor, fala português pouquinho para mim. And I'm like, no, only English. And so it forces them they have to use the English. If it's an emergency, I'll help them in Portuguese. But any other conversation,
they are paying for that education.
Yeah, and we can't let them cheat by going back to their native language to get out of a jam. And so getting through those jams is part of the learning process. So yeah.
And of course, I must ask about Czechs and Slovaks.
They're awesome. They're the best.
No, but do you get any? Of course.
Unfortunately, very few. We've had maybe one or two Czech students, and I think one Slovak student ever.
I was, of course, asking about different nationalities because of the pronunciation.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why you focus so much on pronunciation, because you are in the US. And as a language school in the US, you are in a very different situation than we are here in a non-native English-speaking country, where most people are of one nationality or maximum two nationalities. And we don't have to focus on so many different accents and dialects and pronunciation mistakes and so on. So I suppose that is one of the reasons why you focus on pronunciation, or not?
Yeah, I would say that, my pronunciation method, I have taught individually to, certain nationalities. I was a private instructor for some Korean students. So we learned a lot of the challenges that Korean students face when learning. And of course, with all of our Latin language speakers, there are some sounds that they're always going to have difficulty with. But because of the multilingual nature of our audience for the pronunciation class, I definitely have to focus on more universally challenging sounds. And so I feel like, because I've been teaching it for about 200 weeks now, since 20.
You mean your Facebook Live?
Yeah, my Facebook Live class. I feel repetitive, but students sure seem to still love it. I mean, I try to freshen up the vocabulary and vary the different challenging sounds, but for example, the R and L sound is very difficult for East Asian language speakers, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Thai. They have a hard time with, for example, correct versus collect. And they're stuck. They kind of do a sound in the middle, like a correct sound, and they really have a hard time saying, do I collect the papers or do I correct the papers? And it's challenging. But students from Brazil, they get a little bit bored with that sound. When I try to teach that in the class, Brazilians are like, you see them get their phones out, because it is not at all difficult for Brazilians. But, for example, the sound, the pressure from the stomach coming up from below, is pretty universally difficult. And so I love to include that sound in the class, especially because the action of teaching it, where I put my fist in the air and I say, all right, put your hand up, and students laugh about it. And they say, do I really have to hit my stomach every time? It's like, no, you don't. Yeah, it's good ab exercise. You don't have to go to the gym after my pronunciation class because your stomach muscles are stronger. But putting the pressure in your stomach is a kind of universally fresh sound. Russians have difficulty with it. Yeah. Italians, Saudis, Mexican students, Korean students, for all of them, the is pretty universally fresh. And so I love including that. And also the E and sound, though that's something, the sound is pretty unique to English. And of course, I love to give the example of my name. My name is not Nick, right? And most students call me Nick. And I said, no, hold on. You got to lower your tongue, breathe out. And so that is pretty universally meaningful to almost every language group. And so that to me, unfortunately, makes my pronunciation classes to me feel a little repetitive. But it sure seems like people around the world still love it. Here we are 4 or 5 years after starting it, and the same students are still tuning in every week saying, I love it, I'm so happy.
So how do you do it for those ladies who have never seen one of your lives? Because several of the ladies mentioned that they know your broadcast. This only shows how popular you are. How do you do it? You, I know, use pairs. What else?
Well, I really focus on, I use the minimal pairs, where we can really focus on the small difference between the sounds, like birth and bath, right? And so a lot of students at the early levels say, oh, my bath day is Friday. Like, wait, you take a bath on Friday? That's your bath day? Hold on, we have to focus on the So I try to focus on...
In Czech, there's a completely different problem.
Oh, yeah?
In Czech, we would say birthday.
Birthday with the zzz. So you have more trouble with the sound.
Yeah.
Birthday, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about it later. But that's
yeah. So focusing on the little differences of the minimal pairs helps to really narrow down, or helps people focus on where the problem areas are. And then one thing that I noticed early on in my teaching career, I'm very, very happy that I went to this one teacher conference where this one teacher from a community college in San Diego taught me this concept, that the reason people have difficulty with these new sounds, and often the reason people have difficulty in general, is that their L1 doesn't even have that sound. If it doesn't even exist, that means that saying the word louder and more in the student's face is not going to change whether they hear the sound now or not. So repeating my name, saying, no, my name isn't Nick, my name is Nick, 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 say it louder, Nick. Louder doesn't change anything. You have to say, hold on, think about the shape of your mouth, okay? I have to really focus with my newer students and say, I need you to visualize your mouth. And sometimes in class, I say, close your eyes, okay? And think about where your tongue is. It is low in your mouth medium open, and you're gonna breathe more. Nick, Nick is busy. Not Nick is busy. And so focusing on the physical feeling, I feel is my most valuable tool that I want students to use. And you'll see sometimes in the comments of my videos, students say, give me phonetic alphabet. I need phonetic alphabet, Nick. And I'm not a fan of using the phonetic alphabet for my lessons. Because to me, any student can look in the dictionary and find the phonetic symbols for these words. And of course, the phonetic alphabet can be useful. I'm not saying it's useless, but I think it takes focus away from what's most valuable about my lesson, which is the physical feeling of where the sound is happening and the shape of your mouth and the coaching I can give to the students when they say birthday. They're saying and I say, no, change the shape of your lips to birthday, tongue in the middle of your mouth, lips
like
curl.
you walk around, like when you have people in class, you walk around
Yes.
like, close to them and look at my mouth, look at my,
Mm-hmm.
because I always like, look at my tongue, look at my mouth.
Exactly. I say, you know, and I
I'm
like
not
to say,
shy like that because it's important.
yeah, I try, you know, unfortunately, not terribly unfortunately, because I'm on camera, I do stay generally in front of the camera when I talk to the students, but I do call them out individually and say, all right, Thiago, your turn, try this for me. And then if they say, I say, hold on, think about your lips again, and I coach them individually during the class, and then we do it as a class, as a group, and then we go back to individuals, and I call on them randomly. I never try to go around the room as you, then you, then you, then you, then you, because students, it's too predictable. And students they know when their turn is going to be. They say, in 3 words, it's going to be my turn. I always go randomly with my call outs because I want students to be on their toes and thinking about every aspect of every word, because they know that at any moment they could be called. So then I also like to do this thing where I'll show you, I have an extra phone. And in the old days, the teacher who taught us that one lesson where she said the reason students can't understand these new sounds is because they've never heard them before. The sound doesn't exist in Italian. So, and she also said, here's what you do. Have them buy a small mirror, a makeup mirror even is okay. And nowadays, everybody already has one. It's their selfie camera. And so now I ask students to, no, don't look at your WhatsApp notifications, okay? When you get your phone out, please don't look at those notifications, because what happens is I say, turn on your selfie camera. And before they do that, they're like, oh, my cousin called. My cousin called. Interesting. And then they lose their attention. So I say, okay, hold on. Immediately go to selfie camera. And you'll see in my videos, I say, all right, look at the shape of your lips. Oh. And they can physically see the shape of their mouth rather than depending on their ears. Because most of us think we're learning our pronunciation, or we learn it based on what we hear from other people. But our ears process them in our L1, right? Our ears process them in the language you grew up on. And so we don't hear certain sounds. I often joke, but it's one of those true jokes with Arabic speakers. When Americans or English speakers try to say Khalid in English, Khaled, we say Khalid. When Arabic speakers go, it's Khaled, and I'm not even good at it, but I recognize that the kh sound doesn't exist in English. And that's why it's but that's why it's so hard for us. We say, oh, hey, Khaled is here, you know, and it's like, no, my name's not Khaled, it's Khaled, and Americans can't hear the kh sound very well, so we change it to the closest thing we know, which is k, and that's not right. And it takes time and slowing down and saying, feel it back here, flutter your throat, Khaled. And even now, I'm not saying I'm great at it, but I've learned how to make that sound.
Have you ever heard our specialty, the Czech one?
I want to hear it. I love these. I love hearing sounds, or trying to hear sounds that don't exist in my language. This is great. Let's hear it.
Several crazy things, but
I love it.
The most typical one that we always test the foreigners on is je.
Je.
Oh, you're pretty good already. It's something.
Can you do it again?
It's something between r and je.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's
je. So do you kind of roll your tongue a little bit for the R sound?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would need some practice, but I could imagine, I mean, an American or native English speaker would be like, je, I just got here. And it would be like j to us, unless we stop and think about the little difference of where our tongue is. Can you show me that again? J.
Okay, I'll give you a word. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what a schnitzel is? Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's something
it's like a steak, a meat dish, right?
Austria, yes, in Vienna, Vienna schnitzel.
Yeah.
So in Czech, it's řízek.
Řízek.
You got it.
Řízek. I still feel like I'm doing just Řízek, like we would say Jesus.
Ladies, what do you think?
Řízek.
Good job. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I think I have help, because in Portuguese that sound exists. the zh sound exists in Portuguese.
It's a different one.
It is interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a different one. So you already passed level 1.
Okay.
So now I'll give you level 2.
Okay.
And there will be a combination. Well, maybe this is like level 5.
We'll see.
So there is a word. Oh, I can't remember what it's a flower in Czech. I can't remember what it is in English.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 2 j and 1 ch, like
okay.
chari, yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. So it's je, ji, cha.
Jejika. Jejika. No, jejika. Jejika. Am I doing the ch too hard, or am I doing it? Because I feel
the Arabic ch is harder.
Yeah.
Like softer ch. Yeah.
Ch. It would take some practice.
Here.
I can hear that I'm doing it. Yeah. Ch. Yeah, I'm still doing it too hard. It would take some practice for me.
This is like Dutch. I speak Dutch, and this is where I know it's very similar to Arabic.
Yeah. But we want to do it higher, huh?
Like there's a soft.
Yeah. After the other sounds I'm focusing on, it's too hard for me to soften up.
Wow. I think
I need practice. But I love this stuff. I love learning sounds that we've never even contemplated existing in English. And I think that's such an important...
With pronunciation, tell me. Why is it so interesting for you?
I love direct effect. I have a certain... For some reason, I need to have a direct effect.
Compliment. Excellent. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yeah. I love having a direct effect. And it's really important in my life to know that what I'm doing is immediately going to bring about a change or an improvement. I've had a hard time before I was a teacher working at a job where whatever I did or didn't do, nobody even noticed. Nobody cared. I could call in sick for a week and nobody would notice. Teaching, and specifically pronunciation, I feel like you can have a really immediate effect on, and you can get immediate results. And I love teaching pronunciation where, again, back to the E sound, like sleep and slip. There are some students who've never even thought about that slip, like don't slip on the floor and fall and hurt yourself. Don't slip on the floor. They would always say, don't sleep on the floor. And I'd say, oh, don't worry, I'm not tired. And they'd say, no, don't sleep, the floor is wet. And I'd say, well, and I would just simply show them the sound and say, slow down. That's one of my favorite ones to teach.
It reminds me. We don't make these mistakes here. It just reminds me of the Italian who went to Malta.
Yeah. 2-piece toast.
And
exactly. I want the sheet on the bed. I want the sheet on the bed. Exactly. And when you teach pronunciation, especially with my method and other methods too, just showing a student physically, hold on, open up a little more, more air, low tongue. And students go, and you just did it. You did it perfectly. And I love the direct effect of physically showing somebody the way the mouth is shaped and hearing them for the first time make these sounds that had otherwise been really difficult for them, because everybody just yelled louder at them, more loudly at them, and hoped they got it from more loud yelling. Like, that's not how you don't yell louder. You slow down and you take your time and you talk about the details and you
take
step by step
out.
Yeah. So that's why I love pronunciation. I really feel like for my affinity for direct effect, or my need for direct effect, and pronunciation really fits well with that. I can teach a grammar topic over a week and enjoy teaching it with students and giving them lots of practice and see them get a good test score. And that's nice. But Nick isn't that patient. I don't want to spend a week teaching a topic. I want direct results today, Junior. So that's why I love pronunciation. That's one of the reasons I love pronunciation. I love having a direct effect.
Normally here in our language classes, we don't have just a pronunciation class. Maybe we have phonetics class if we study English at university, but we don't have a specific, or at least I haven't seen it so much around, that we would have specific pronunciation classes. I was just talking about it, getting ready for your interview with one of our colleagues from this club today, because we were discussing pronunciation. She said exactly what you were saying. She's a very experienced teacher. She said, you cannot just shout at people louder. That's not how it works. Yeah, we were discussing that. And so we spoke about not really creating pronunciation classes, but incorporating bits and pieces all over our courses and lessons. Is that something that you don't do so much, and you rather have a special pronunciation class because the students come from different backgrounds?
Yeah, and I would say, it is hard I would say a lot of teachers don't have a refined method for pronunciation. They can correct a student when it's wrong, but they don't have a direct method. So it's hard to incorporate pronunciation classes into other broader, lesson plans. What I used to do was, when I taught at other schools, I would have the pronunciation lesson ready throughout the week, and we would go back to it. Whenever we finished class 20 minutes early, we would say, hey, everybody, you did a great job with that vocabulary. You want to do a pronunciation lesson? And they would say, yeah. And so that the same lesson would be on a sideboard. I keep pointing in the wrong direction. A sideboard throughout the week. And when there was 20 extra minutes, I would say, I think we can go back and do pronunciation again. And we did it earlier this week. I bet you're going to be even better. So we could go back and dabble in it without having a dedicated pronunciation class. That was how I included it. And then, of course, when I started Connect English, it was a chance for even more creativity. And to be very honest, because I don't have to pay myself for the extra time to teach pronunciation, I said, I'm going to teach pronunciation myself. I'm the boss here, and I like it. It's my hobby, and I'll just invite students for a 1 hour, once a week pronunciation class. And so it's a supplemental course at Connect. And so what we're really getting is, out of, we have a few hundred students in our schools, we get about 12 or 15 students to show up to the class. And those are the students who have the extra time, who aren't super tired by the end of the day, who've already eaten their lunch, and they say, you know what, I'm going to stay around. But they also end up being the most energetic students, the ones who are the most excited.
Your company, I believe that's why they come, and they know it's going to be fun. Yeah. So why not? And then you also broadcast on Facebook, and that's a really nice combination. And thank you for such an interesting idea. It's a good tip, methodology tip, to include that at the end of your lesson, because people do enjoy it. Like, if you make it fun, if you have a ready-made lesson, and if you make it fun, people are going to have that reaction like, yay, we can do it. We can practice maybe in Czech, it's very often the b and w sound. We don't have the b, like the Spanish speakers have b and v, and we have a problem with it. We have b and w.
V and w.
Of course, the and th. So and then combinations, and then maybe connecting words and stuff. So we can do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and that's what I started doing. A lot of my students asked after that, because I often do pronunciation telephone, and that's one of my favorite things to do. It's my bread and butter, we would say. But I also then create conversation topics using the words of the day, but that's not on camera. It just doesn't make good video to have the students sitting around talking together. So a lot of people say, why don't you do something different? And I'm like, well, I have my 3 different lessons, but nothing different, or a lot of the other different things they ask for just wouldn't be good on camera. Having, students in pairs, working in pairs around the classroom and moving the camera around to them A, they would be uncomfortable with that, but B, it wouldn't make for a very constructive lesson. And so unfortunately, some students think that all we ever do is just drills on camera, and that's just the most camera friendly.
What's your activity? What's the activity with the phone?
The telephone game is 5 different minimal pairs. So it will be like slip and sleep. Let's see, sock and sack. Then you got birth and bath, and then sleep, ice and eyes, for example. And you put the 2 columns. And I usually like to have the easier word on one side, like sleep and sock on one side, and then the more difficult word on the other. Then I put a number 0 through 9 next to each one. I'm pointing off camera now. Hold on. And then I put a number 0 through 9 next to each word. And then I give a telephone number after we practice all of them. And I say, all right, my phone number is sleep, bath,
I like that.
eyes, and then they say the word, and what they're saying the word that is associated with the number right next to it. So I give an example, and then they say, all right, now, Jamara, it is your turn to say your phone number, but don't say the numbers. Please say the word that is associated with the number. So they know their number, and they're like, they want to say it accurately, because if they accidentally say sleep instead of slip, they're telling everybody to put a 0 instead of a 1, and it's going to cause the wrong phone number to come out. So they're focusing on the little difference of of the minimal pair to say the right number, to then say the phone number correctly.
Nice.
And so it's really it's fun, and first I let students volunteer, and then I call on. Well, first I call on an experienced student who I know is comfortable with doing it. Then I let us, perhaps a new student volunteer, and then I always call on one student who's not expecting it, because that way they know that they're gonna be called on, and everybody holds themselves accountable for focusing on that little difference, because they're gonna get called on sooner or later for the class. So yeah.
My friend, Lenka Ludvíková, who did an amazing webinar last week on autonomous learning, is asking, how about teaching learning word stress, Nick?
Word stress and intonation, I love it. Yeah. But I honestly haven't taught that in so long. It's been so long. I've gotten, unfortunately now, being more in the management role at the schools, it means that I haven't consistently taught many topics in a long time. And so I loved teaching intonation and word stress lessons when I was more consistently in the classroom. And in fact, to go back to the history a little bit, for a few years, from like 2012, 2013, 2014, I really wasn't teaching very much anymore. I would teach a class for a month while we got a new teacher, and then I would stop teaching for 3 months, because it was just management, marketing, new student intake. And I liked that stuff, but I really loved teaching. And that's when I decided to start the pronunciation class again, because I said, gosh, I really want to teach. I really want to do something that matters directly. So in 2015, I started teaching that pronunciation class, and I had to make sure it stayed good for on video. It needed to be video friendly. And so I haven't developed yet any word stress or intonation lessons that are video friendly. But, it's a good point for Lenka that maybe I should try. Maybe it's time to start doing some word stress and intonation lessons, every third week or every fourth week.
Super important too, right?
Yeah. It's just I haven't developed a way to make it video friendly, or thought through a way to make sure it stays video friendly. Because generally the method we use is to show students the idea and then work with them gently and then put them in partners. And that's not video friendly. And most of my lessons are developed to be that way. Put them in partners and coach them when they work with a partner, and then ask them to produce after that. And that just isn't going to be video friendly. So I have to think through how a lesson on intonation and then word stress could really be a video friendly lesson that the Facebook audience would want to see. And so because of I would say the repetitiveness that I feel of the pronunciation lesson myself, I haven't taken the time to develop anything yet, but I would like to. It is a good idea.
Time to start.
Exactly. To freshen it up. It's time to freshen it up.
To challenge yourself, because you know what happens when we challenge ourselves, we move forward, and we learn new things too. But this is not a hint. This is just like out of the blue.
It is something that I haven't done recently, because I haven't developed a video friendly version of that. And so, but it's something that I know students desire. Students want that. So
and it is important. I suppose that's why Lenka asked. But let me ask you another question that one of our teachers in the club asked. Which mistakes are the most problematic when it comes to misunderstanding? I know you mentioned birth and bath and sleep and slip and correct and collect, but do you have a few, like a list of things?
Yeah. So I keep a spreadsheet. I keep a list of these. I used to reinvent the wheel every week. When I would start planning my class, I would rethink a new list of words, and I realized I was going back and using some old ones. I wasn't finding brand new words every time. So I created a spreadsheet that is labeled by tab of minimal pair sound difference. And so I now have hundreds and hundreds of words that I can go back to, and I add to them every week. But one of the ones that I've noticed with Central Europeans of varying languages is the us and as. Okay, as or like as. A lot of Central Europeans, instead of doing the sound with the pressure from the stomach, it's more of a sound. Can you tell us the answer? Yeah. Okay, and it's not us, it's us. We have to have some pressure from the stomach. Yeah, so that one happens a lot. Yeah. So, and a lot of languages do that. A lot of languages default to an type sound, and it changes language by language, but some kind of sound. And that's where I love teaching that punch yourself in the stomach sound of And so that the us and as is one, and like another one in that category would be bus and boss. Okay. I saw the boss outside. Really? What was he training some people, or was he working with some customers? You saw the boss outside? No, the boss, the big vehicle with all of the people in it. Oh, you saw the bus outside. So you gotta put the pressure to make that sound. And that doesn't exist in most languages. I ask every language I talk to, do you have an sound in your language? And every language I've talked to has said we don't have that sound. And so that's one of my favorites to teach. Another one is when we go to the like for example, the color green. Okay. And then when you a small smile is a grin. Yeah. A grin. So here's a grin. Okay. And then green, of course, would be, the color of this sticker from Trader Joe's is green. And so a lot of people say, oh, you have a nice green on your face. Like, oh, am I wearing makeup? Like special makeup? Oh, no, you have, and a smile, Nick, a green. And like, oh, that's a grin. You have a grin on your face with the low tongue and more air. So if you say you have a green on your face, it probably means you have makeup on your eyes, and maybe you're going out for a nice fancy show or something. You have green on your face, but a grin is the smile with the low tongue and breathe out. So there's tons of minimal pairs with the high tongue and low tongue, and that I teach so frequently. It's almost always in my class because everybody seems to get some value from that.
And I'm sure that you also very often teach the and the.
Yeah.
So, we would also love to know what are your tricks to teach the and the?
Okay. Let's see. Gosh, I'm trying to think of some minimal pairs with the voiced and the unvoiced. Yeah. So, okay. No, that's not going to work so well. I'm trying to think of a good minimal pair with the voiced versus unvoiced. Okay. Not so good. It's not nearly necessarily a minimal pair, but bath. Okay. Bath. And bathe. Of course, it uses a different A sound in that case. But bath is the noun. Okay. I need a bath. It's been a long day. And I need to bathe my dog before we all get in the car. She stinks. Okay.
Well, you teach?
Well,
teach it? Come on.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. I learned a new trick just this year that I think has been very helpful, and I want to back up a little bit. So, of course, the difference between them is your tongue is in the same place, more or less, but the difference is, do you vibrate your throat or not? Bath, no vibration. Bathe is with vibration. And so the same problem happens.
Like
what's that?
When you put your hand on your head and you say, you can
feel it. Yep. I say feel it down here, but you're right. You can feel it. Exactly. Bath and bathe. So what I do is a similarly difficult one for Spanish speakers is the S and the Z sound. They say, oh, I have water in my ice. I have water in my ice? In your soda? No, my eyes. And they have a hard time with that. So when I say, no, not ice, eyes, they say, what? And I say, hold on, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about some other sounds where they're the same shape of mouth, same mechanical, physical feeling, but with and without vibration. Because they do that in Spanish, like P and B. Yeah. And I say, now add some vibration. B, b, b. right? And they say, oh, wow. Yeah, they are the same thing, but with and without vibration. And I say, okay, how about and v, right? So there's no vibration. And then you feel the vibration. Let's apply the same principle now to S and Z. And I say, I know you can do and they say, yeah, that's easy. And that's it. Now, this is the new sound. Apply some vibration. And they say, and then they laugh at themselves. And I say, you're actually doing it perfectly. You're doing a great job. And they say, that was so strange. I've never vibrated the S sound before because the sound doesn't really exist in Spanish very strongly.
Same for us with using our tongue together with our teeth. We just don't do it in Czech.
Yeah.
So and so us, so weird to suddenly
to do it. And a lot of times people feel uncomfortable with it because they think I need a napkin after this, you know, like, and you just have to get comfortable with it. But it's the same principle. I like to back students up to voiced and voiceless or voiced and unvoiced consonants that already exist, like P and B, F and V. And I say, you know how to do those, right? So p is unvoiced and b is voiced. So you can add the voice to a sound, another sound, right? And they go, maybe. And I say, okay. And now add the same vibrating principle that you applied to P and B and F and V, apply the same thing to and now you're making the sound. And a lot of students are a little embarrassed to do it because sticking your tongue out is rude, right? See, a lot of Japanese students, of course, they don't feel comfortable with showing their tongue. They're like, no, and they say, no, it's okay. It's not rude in the USA. Of course, going like, that's rude, but they feel like showing their tongue a lot of times is just not okay, and they have to kind of break the habit of being polite and go, this is the house, you know. And so I try to back up a step, show them a voiced and unvoiced consonant that they can do, and kind of lay out the concept of adding voice, adding vibration to it. And then say, now let's apply the same principle to. And
so how do we do this? This is another question from my colleague from the club. How do we do this when we've been doing it wrong for 20 years? Pronunciation errors. How do you understand them?
That's where I say, again, focus on the physical feeling. I really want you to visualize. That's where I say, of course, take out your camera. Now, your camera doesn't help with but I say focus on the physical feeling. Stop trying to hear it. Give yourself 2 weeks where you focus on the physical feeling, not what your ears are detecting. Because your ears are going to tell you you sound great when you're saying Khalid or Khalid. We can't hear the difference. Your ears are not going to tell you. You have to feel the feeling. Like when you were just saying, feel the higher in your throat. I'm like, oh, higher in my throat? I have to build a new habit. I have to build a new habit. So I say, give yourself 2 weeks of thinking about the shape of your mouth and the actual physical thing that's happening. And with 2 weeks of saying this, you can build a new habit. And then students say, yeah, it took me about 2 weeks to be able to hear the difference.
And my student just confirmed to me, we were starting a new course and she was back to our group, and I said, wow, your pronunciation got so much better. How did you do it? And she said, working with the mirror. And I really listened to you, Nina, when you told me that I have to pay attention to this and I'm going to learn it. And she learned it perfectly.
Yes, you've got to break the habit of depending on your ears, because your ears were trained by your native language, your L1. And so your ears are always going to be shaped. The sounds that come in are going to be shaped, at least initially, by your L1. And you have to break that habit of just trying to hear it. You have to have someone like you say, no, try to make the sound a little higher in your throat and softer. And I go, and it's hard. But after 2 weeks of saying, no, not Khalid, it is, my voice wavers when I do it. But I think with 2 weeks of practice of thinking about the physical feeling, I could probably do it pretty well.
And also repeating after people. Yeah, it's like shadowing. I always tell students to start shadowing other people in videos, in movies, just for 20-30 seconds. Try to shadow and say what you heard. You can use the subtitles on Netflix. So easy now. learn
And
English.
a good one is, have you heard of Youglish before? Are you familiar with Youglish?
Yes, of course.
Oh man, I started using that this year. One of my teachers showed it to me, and it's this
English is
great way to find YouTube clips of the word you just learned. You just learned a word. You say, well, let me check out how people really use it on Youglish. Now, of course, you're going to find somewhat more formal speech on Youglish because you're going to get a lot of talks by professors and actors and such. But if you search through it enough, you'll find conversations that are more casual. You say, oh, that is interesting how they say that in casual conversation. You know, like you've got a big grin on your face. You have a grin.
Youglish.
There you go. Youglish. Yep. And it's a way to search for, you know, real YouTube clips using the words you just learned, and it gives you a chance to shadow some of the things people say. And it's a way you can do it at home when you want to practice at home. Because I like to, back to the point I was saying a second ago about take 2 weeks to focus. When I was learning Portuguese, I couldn't say the name Veronica right because I have a cousin named Veronica. Okay, and well, no, for them it's the O sound, and it's different. So I say cousin Veronica. It's like a.
Veronica.
Veronica. Yeah. Hey, hey, cousin Veronica. And she goes, and my Portuguese teacher said, no, it's not Veronica, it's Veronica. And I was like, Veronica? And I was like, I said it, Veronica. She's like, no, Nick, you're saying Veronica, it's Veronica. And I was like, I said that. I said Veronica. And my teacher said, no, Nick, change the shape of your mouth a little bit and do more, oh, Veronica. And I was like, I'm saying that. And she said, Nick, focus on your lips. Oh. And after 2 weeks of practicing it with her, seeing her and saying Veronica, she's like, you got it. You're finally saying it. Give it a few weeks. Stop listening to your ears and focus on the shape of your mouth.
And I'm going to mess it up even more for you. Here in the Czech Republic, I suppose in Slovakia too, we have the same name, obviously.
Okay.
But we don't have the stress on the second syllable. We have the stress on the first syllable. So we say Veronica.
Oh, see, that would take some practice. Veronica.
And you like your Portuguese or, so it's Veronica.
And you roll the R a little bit, huh? Veronica. Veronica. Interesting. Okay, Veronica. Very light roll. Because we learned that a lot from Spanish. So if you speak Spanish as a native English speaker, you can do the tongue roll a little bit better. So I learned Spanish in high school. So Veronica. Okay.
Veronica, yes, Veronica.
Okay, Veronica. Okay, well, I can learn that.
What about accents? What is the hardest accent to understand for you Americans?
Oh, I gotta say Vietnamese. Okay, yeah. Oh man, it's really tough to include a Vietnamese student in a pronunciation lesson, a group pronunciation lesson. I really wish I could work with every Vietnamese student individually. And Thai students as well, a little bit, but not the same. I really find that Vietnamese students need individual help a lot more. And unfortunately, I don't, usually I'm teaching a small group class. So I can give a little bit of individual attention, and especially when we break into groups, I can sit down with the Vietnamese students. But I really wish I could help. Every time I have a Vietnamese student, I'm like, God, I wish I could have like an hour today to just sit down and talk with you about the challenges that they face when reading things aloud, and like they don't add S's on the end of things very easily. I really wish I could spend more time with Vietnamese individuals, because otherwise, Spanish, uses a lot of the same sounds as English. That's fine. French, I could help a little bit, but man, Vietnamese.
So funny sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember watching Beverly Hills 90210 on French TV when I was a teenager. We were on holiday in France, and because they dub everything, I had never laughed this much in my life. And Kelly and Dylan.
Yeah. Dylan. Yeah. Yeah. I love, the challenges of the different accents, and there are many that I haven't had a lot of experience with, and many that I do. We have probably our 10 different nationalities we work with the most. So I know how to work with, but man, I would say of the ones that I know best, Vietnamese has got to be the most challenging. I feel like Vietnamese students need more individual help and to get those sounds down. And I don't even really know the exact why, but of course it's related to their L1. The native language clearly influences how they pronounce things in English.
I must ask, have you ever thought of making one of those 24 accents videos? How people make different accents.
I've seen those. I would feel bad doing it. I think my accents would sound so stupid. I can do a few accents pretty well. I can do a good Brazilian accent.
Come on, give us something.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to sound so dumb doing a Brazilian accent. Okay. I'll do a Brazilian accent of someone asking me for a favor. Okay. Nikki, please, no homework today. Nikki, no, too much homework. No, Nikki, I do not want homework. It's terrible. Okay, and this means too much. This is the Brazilian hand signal. Brazilians use a lot of good hand signals like Italians do, and I love learning the Brazilian hand signals. But this means too much. Nikki, no, not too much homework. It's difficult. It's too much. I am busy. And so that's the Brazil. And I work with so many Brazilians, so I'm probably best at the Brazilian accent. And if there are any Brazilians watching, please don't kill me for doing that accent so terribly.
It's only us Czechs and Slovaks.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, good.
So no worries. Don't tell anyone.
Okay, yeah, don't tell your Brazilian friends.
Nikki gave too much homework.
Too much, Nikki. It's too much.
So, last question.
Okay.
Because, of course, there's always this dispute about whether we non-native speakers, or at least there used to be, not so much anymore because we are using so much more international pronunciation, international English.
Yeah.
But there used to be this dispute when I went to school. Should I use British English or should I use American English? And I myself love both, and I love all the other dialects and accents. I am obsessed, and, especially with Australian English. That would be my favorite. Scottish English and Australian English. Irish English is very hard to understand.
Hard for me, yeah.
And also, I just started watching The Outlander. I think I will have to put the subtitles on soon because I have a problem understanding those Scottish guys. What about American versus British? What do you think?
I don't like what I first like to say or include early is I don't like the disrespect between the two languages, or between the two versions. I like to equate it to iPhone versus Android. Right, both of them get the job done very well, but you have to, it's really good to know if you pick up somebody's iPhone and you need to turn on the camera, you need to know how to, because I'm an Android guy, and so I need to know how to make their iPhone work. I don't need to throw their phone on the ground and say this is stupid. I need to say, oh, iPhone. Well, I'm not great at this, but I know how to do my best with. I can figure out how to use an iPhone. And same with Android. iPhone users pick up my phone to take a photo sometimes like, oh my God, what is this phone? This is stupid, Nick. And I say, hold on, it's just an Android. No need to be angry, okay? And it's the same thing I say about British English versus American English. I say pick one and roll with it, but spend enough time learning the other one so that way you're not completely baffled by it when you hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when somebody calls a truck a lorry.
Yeah,
I'm not, lorry is a name in English. We're like, we don't think that means a truck, but there are a lot of Americans who have no idea what that means. And they're like, a lorry? Is that like a Tammy and a Karen? And, and it's like, no, a lorry, a truck. Okay. And British people would be like embarrassed. Like, you Americans, you have to spend some time acknowledging and gaining some understanding of the different ways of approaching the same language. And even if you're not going to become an expert in both, at least be ready to nod and smile when somebody calls a truck a lorry. Like, oh, you're from England, huh? That's awesome. Instead of being like, oh, lorry, you're stupid. You just accept that there are differences. Don't be angry. Don't choose, I only do this one, thus I have to hate that one. There's no room for hate in the language.
Same with pronunciation, yeah?
Yeah.
It's good to learn how to understand both.
Yeah, exactly.
Say it's harder to understand British English. Some people say American English, and I think it's always about how much you surround yourself with that.
Yeah, and so there's nothing. You shouldn't hate the other language. There are people who see my pronunciation class and they're like, oh, this is stupid. It's California English, and I'm like, I said that right at the beginning of class. I'm not trying to deceive anybody about what kind of English this is. I'm Nick from California. We are connecting to San Diego. When you watch this class, you're choosing to learn California accent American English. Don't hate, okay? And then I jokingly hate a little bit on British English, but I'm like, I don't hate British English. It's amazing. It's the beginning. It's the origin. And so I will joke that, you know, when they call it a lorry, they're stupid. And I'm like, they're not stupid. I'm making that as a joke about it's not stupid. It's just the other way.
Nice.
So I say, pick your one, pick your focus on it, get great at it, but spend your time on the side learning the differences between a lorry and a truck, or a flat and an apartment, you know, a cracker and a biscuit.
We should teach it.
Or a cookie and a biscuit. Yeah, exactly. Focus on really getting great at one, but spend plenty of time acknowledging and, you know, making yourself aware, or your students aware that, hey, we call this an apartment in the USA, but you know what they call it in England? And of course, a lot of European students would know immediately that it's a flat. And so learning those differences is the way to do it. And that way you're not like, I'm completely confused. No, just say, oh, I've heard that. That's British English. That's cool. And when I hear somebody call something a flat, I'm like, oh, you must have learned British English first. And I'm curious and I love it. But some people have a hard time acknowledging the difference and staying friendly about it. It's like, no, stay friendly. We're all just talking here, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, usually when students come to my lessons, they already know what they need to be learning because they have a specific goal. For example, my boss is Scottish and my colleagues are American, so I need to learn both. So then we work with that. And so they already come with that in mind, yeah? So
yeah, they know their audience. They know who they're going to be working with, so they can focus on the one that fits them best, I got a funny story, a quick one. I always have funny stories, but I once taught the pronunciation class, and a student in the comments said, teacher, please teach in British English from now on. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm kind of hardwired for California accent here. I can't just
do British English.
No, and when I do it, when my friends who know British English well, when they hear me do it, or when I talk to British folks, they're like,
"Okay,
don't ever do that." They're like, "Don't do that." I try to do some, and everybody who actually knows British English accent well is like, "Stop doing that! Please stop doing that." And so I can acknowledge the differences of pronunciation, but I can't produce that. So when the student asked me to teach class with a British accent from now on, I was like, no, I'm good, but I'm not that good. I can't just switch over to British English that easy. Sorry. So I got a good laugh out of that.
Nick, I think we could be talking until midnight here, midnight time, but you have to go and do stuff. And I have to go and have dinner.
I gotta go hiking. Gotta go hiking with my students in a couple hours.
I have to go have dinner and watch some Netflix because
right.
I have a free evening. So thank you so much for all of this. I have really enjoyed my time with you. Every single time we do a live interview, I learn new things. I learn new things about you, about the way you teach, and you're always full of positive energy. I love that. I believe that it's easy to work with you, both as a student and a teacher, because you're a big boss now in school. And I wish you all the best with your business because you're doing really well. And now what I've seen over all those years, just like with what I do here, it's not really about English, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's about the interaction, the experience. It's about the fun we have meeting people. And, you know, online lessons can deliver some of that, but students really want to see humans and interact with humans and feel even more comfortable and confident with humans. So I really can't wait for when we can start inviting students back to the classrooms again and doing some more. Okay, I'd like to have a closing message if I could. Thank you to everybody. And we're always learning. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I hope, you know, some of you who've seen my pronunciation class on Wednesdays. It's Wednesdays at 1:45 California time, so that's 9 hours before. You're always invited to go see it on Connect English. And, you know, obviously, we're always learning, teachers. Every time, you know, I've learned so much because, you know, Lydia and I are friends, and she's an amazing English teacher. Yes, and I learn a lot from her. The question she has for me, she's like, well, I hope you're still watching. Hi, Lydia. There's a lot that I learned from her questions. She asks these very specific questions. She's like, hey, Nick, this preposition change the meaning of the sentence? And I'm like, ooh, give me a minute to think about that. So, you know, stay curious and stay open to learning. You know, we fancy we fancy ourselves as experts, but gosh, we can always keep learning. And luckily, as teachers, we know that learning is forever. And so stay with it. Don't be discouraged, and keep giving your gift of good communication to the world, everybody. We can do it. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure to have you. Bye.
Hi, bye. See y'all around.